I do not officially know why we are here, other than that you are making a big announcement on Wednesday. What is that announcement?
Pilar, I've been serving in state government for over 25 years. I've been in the State House, I've been chair of several committees, I've been Speaker Pro Tem, 2 terms as Secretary of State. We've increased efficiencies in this agency. We've run several safe and secure elections through a pandemic and through horrible rumors and lies and foreign insults on the American system. And we've won at every point, but we can do more. And with an open seat in 2026, Pilar, I'm running for governor.
All right, running for governor. First GOP candidate, first candidate in either party, actually, to announce. Why are we announcing so early?
And I know there's people have fatigue from the 2026 presidential race, and I share that emotion, but the runway doesn't get any shorter from here on out. I believe in the time of competition, social media, and a lot of noise, you have to seize on your opportunities as they come. So for people who want to get involved in the governor's race for 2026, you're getting to go or no-go time. And for us, it's go time.
What do you see as what you have to offer for the governor's office?
One experience. I have the policy-making experience from the House to respect that branch of government. The other side that I have is on the administrative side is we've improved culture in an agency. And if you can improve the culture, you get better outcomes without having to spend more money to get those outcomes. And 2, we've actually taken the problems. Oftentimes there's fatigue in state government. They try to solve the problems, but the bureaucracy slows them down, they quit. We were able to overcome bureaucracy by making the case of how going from business filings for every year to every other year. We've been on an AS400 that was introduced to this agency back when Jack Breyer's administration. Why it wasn't come off before? Because it's a lot of work. But I've done the work and continue to do the work. And even though I'm running for governor, I'm continuing to be committed to this office because I still have a job to do. I'll just have to work harder, but I'm used to that.
As we look at this campaign, you have lots of connections within the House and the Senate. Mm-hmm. But the governor's office is a different role. It's an executive role. It's an administrative role.
Yes.
How do you make that transition?
I did it here because this is an executive role. This is an administrative role. And when you go from one branch of the government to the other, you never lose respect for the one you came from. And you respect those policymakers and understand they have the equal power that you do. That's the way the Founding Fathers set it up. And if you can respect that, you don't have the other side constantly trying to tank your agenda, but rather help formulate it with you. And that's what makes good government, and that's what Kansans want.
Now, when you said you were running, you mentioned, having to deal with a lot of lies and attacks on the election system, mm-hmm. et cetera. Some of those attacks have come from within your own party, folks who have believed that the elections, even in Kansas, are suborned in some way or another and are not fair, are not free. How do you speak to those members of your party as you're looking to win their votes for the governor's office?
If you've lied about the quality of elections in Kansas or have been misguided about the quality of elections in Kansas, we've already won that argument. We've campaigned on it and won not only the first time, but the second time as well. And if you're not willing to stand for integrity and the truth, I'm not sure I can get your vote. But there's other people who are hungry for candidates and government leaders that are genuine and willing to stand up for truth. And that's been my record for over 25 years. And it's not going to change running for a governor's office.
Now, I do know that having covered you as the Secretary of State for the last 6 years, that there are a lot of pragmatic Kansans who appreciate and have even applauded some of your actions in office. How do you speak to them and reassure them that winning the primary is not going to change even keel that you have maintained as Secretary of State?
I can't be somebody I'm not. And I'm going to be honest, I don't need this job. This is my service. This is my mission field. This is what I want to do because I love my state so much. As a kid who grew up in Great Bend and get to enjoy some of the benefits of a metro area in Kansas City now and travel the state statewide. 100%, 1,000% genuine. I love my state. Out of all my family members, I'm the one who stayed because I love Kansas. I can't undo that. And I can't make Kansas something it isn't, and I can't make me something I'm not. I am who I am, you get what you get, and I just hope you like it.
What do you think is most important for Kansans to know about Scott Schwab?
3 things. You know, you don't want a candidate that's only is focused on one issue. Property taxes are an issue right now for the state. I know the legislature wants to address that, but they probably won't get all that needs to be done because we have divided government right now. It's just, when you compromise, it means you lose something. The other thing that's concerned is we can no longer trust the federal government to always have our back as a state. I think it's incumbent that we put in statute that foreign adversaries like China and Iran cannot own farmland next to our military bases. Our military bases are incumbent to our economy and our community. And the third thing is, I just want folks to know, and they saw it when we lost our son. I'm not going to run from that event happened in my life. It's a part of who we are, even though we miss Caleb dearly. But I've worn my faith publicly. I believe Kansans are hungry for genuine government leaders that have deep convictions. And my family and I have been very public about our convictions. And when you have leaders that are deep in their convictions, they're not erratic, and you know you have government leaders who care, as opposed to people who are just trying to get elected. You got to know what you believe in politics, because it's going to be challenged every day. And whether it was when I got elected to 2003, sworn in the first time, to today, I've been consistent in my character. It's only gotten stronger and better, and I don't see that changing.
What is the biggest challenge as an elected official that you have faced, and how have you dealt with it?
I would say it was the primary in 2022. To have, normally when I have a race, they don't lie about your character in Kansas. That's normally a DC issue. To have my kids go get the mail and read lies about my character that they knew personally were not true. But one of the greatest moments was overcoming that. To say, hey, you can take those darts and still stand for truth. You can still be a man of integrity and win an election.
You are now governor of all of Kansas, not just
Is it that
Republican
easy?
Kansas.
Hey!
No.
Flora said we won. She already called the race. Let's go home. Let's go pop the champagne.
If you win, you're dealing with all of Kansans,
Yes, like I am now.
not just Republican Kansans.
Correct.
How do you become a governor for Johnson County, for Wyandotte, for parts of Wichita that are very determinedly blue?
The same way I did as Secretary of State. There are areas in Wichita that they were concerned that they weren't getting access to voting polling places. Some of them are Democrat areas, but they deserved access. And so we worked with the county commission to increase the number of polling places in Wichita and Sedgwick County. When it came to Wyandotte County, it was about getting funding and making sure their equipment was secure. And they were in a building that was dilapidated, and it was a parking lot that was not ADA compliant. You're not going to do a press release on that, but making sure you're hiring an election commissioner and working with those commissioners to make sure they're meeting basic standards. Wyandotte County is not a Republican area. A lot of areas of Sedgwick County aren't Republican areas. But, you know, it's called just do the right thing. And that's what we've done. Now, sometimes they're going to disagree what the right thing is, but you can always give it a chance and give it a listen. Maybe, just maybe, you could be wrong. And I found myself sometimes I thought I was right, and I listened, and I was wrong, and then I corrected. It's called humility, and I learned it from my dad.
What have I not asked that you think we should have talked about?
I would say the biggest challenge, what would be the biggest challenge? And the biggest challenge is the moment you say you're running for governor, people who have never met you hate you. And you just got to be thick-skinned. You got to forge on. I've dealt with it before. I got a feeling the volume will be turned up. But, you know, my wife and I and the kids have prayed about it. And we said, we didn't get this far just to get this far. And it's not that I'm done offering something to Kansas. But I have to explain what I have to offer and make sure that it's in a way that Kansans believe in. But like I said, I truly believe that Kansans are hungry for leaders that don't want mediocrity. They don't want the middle. They want greatness. And with an opportunity with onshoring of manufacturing overseas to come back to the United States, and with the I-35, the 135, and the I-70 corridor, it's not all going to go to Johnson County anymore. You could put it in Wichita. You could put it in Hayes. You can put it, I mean, even Garden City's economic sector is exploding on manufacturing. We have an opportunity to be great. We don't have to be middle anymore.
Yet all those locations that you mentioned have a couple of issues that are actually pretty big: lack of affordable housing and lack of available daycare slots for kids, which are literally keeping people out of those economies.
Quality workforce is going to be incredibly important, and allowing to have companies provide child care to their employees without the employees being dinged on taxes for it. I mean, these are just little minor changes you can change that don't break state government, but give those rural communities opportunity. We often talk about workforce development, but we rarely do it. We've talked about K through 12 funding, but if we do all this K through 12 funding is mandated by the court, why is the result not better workforce development? That's what needs to alter for Western Kansas, is to let them folks know that you don't have to necessarily get a degree. You can get a certification, and it may even be worth way more than that degree. And to change the culture that because you're a master welder doesn't mean you're less than a guy who's got a bachelor's degree in science.
So other major issues, and this is one that has been something we've talked about with the State House for a while now, which is that Kansans support several things: the legalization of medical marijuana, the expansion of Medicaid, keeping abortion, access to abortion in the state. They've made it very clear that those are things that they support. And yet, at the State House level, those are things that the State House in general has not supported.
Yeah.
As governor, where would you stand on those
So
issues?
I'm married to a pharmacist, and so I'm very familiar with how a drug goes through clinical trials to get to market. When it comes to medicinal use of marijuana, first off, you have to find a way to make a consistent dispense. If dispensaries have variations, then the outcomes are variations, and then you can't tell if you're really getting a positive outcome or not. So I would rather allow Commission KU to do true clinical studies so that we have true outcomes. So I think oftentimes, like what we see in the vitamin world, is we overpromise and it underdelivers. And so let's base it on science and not people's individual experiences. As it relates to Medicaid expansion, if you can find a way to do it where it doesn't increase dependence on government, we see it in the Wall Street Journal that more people are dependent financially on government than ever before in the history of our country, and that's not sustainable. So are you expanding government dependency, or are you using it to decrease government dependency? If they can come up with a model that decreases government dependency, and I'm not just talking the individual, but organizations and companies as well, you're better, the state is better served financially if most citizens can live on their own. And then the third thing is related to abortion. The court has already stamped that. The voters in 2022 have spoke loudly on that. I mean, there's really nothing the legislature can do, or let alone a governor.
You mentioned something interesting, which is, you know, a term that has often been applied to corporations relying on government assistance, corporate welfare. Mm-hmm. And that oftentimes, the accusation is that oftentimes corporations rely on corporate welfare, rely on programs like Medicaid, like food stamps or TAMF, whatever you want to call it, in order to be able to pay their folks less because they know they'll qualify for these aids and still be able to make all their bills. The opposite of that would be to require an expanded minimum wage.
See, but that's the problem with the expanded minimum wage, is all you do is increase the cost for all the services you're trying to pay for with the expanded minimum wage. So if you increase minimum wage, you give someone a raise who didn't necessarily deserve it, and the most people who need more than minimum wage are working so hard they're getting above minimum wage as it is today. And so if you increase the minimum wage, you can cost the goods and services that minimum wage provides. So no longer does that minimum wage work, which is why California's minimum wage is through the roof, because every time they raise the minimum wage, costs and services go up. So they raise the minimum wage and costs and services go up, and you can never catch up. It's better to say, here's the minimum wage, and then let the market handle it from there, which is why it's way more affordable to live in Kansas City than it is LA.
You know, kind of a fun question I like to ask folks.
Then
is,
let's have fun.
What is something that Kansans don't know about Scott Schwab?
Oh, I don't know. My life's been pretty public. I'm fascinated by AI. I went from, and this is fairly new, I went from being incredibly intimidated about AI to realizing the potential. When I started working with ChatGPT to see what its capabilities were, get my toe in the water, I realized for a state like Kansas to be an AI hub for ag and animal health, where we can aggregate studies and data from around the globe and throughout history to allow us to get better yields and longer life out of livestock, and we have that animal corridor now, I'm fascinated by that. Now, if I share that with my neighbors, they're kind of scared, which is fair. It's going to be a slow move to that direction, but I'd rather us do it first than somebody like Illinois or Ohio, and they take a sector that we really should own.
So, Scott Schwab, candidate for governor 2026.
That sounds fun.